Joining us is the Shadow Climate Change and Energy Minister Ted O'Brien. Ted, good to see you. So the Greens threatening to derail the government's safeguard mechanism policy. So what, the Greens are doing your job for you?
Good morning, Pete, and nice to be with you. Well, whatever political game the Labor Party and the Greens want to play, that's up to them. Typically in these situations, the Greens always fold anyway. So, we'll wait and see. At the end of the day, we're talking about a policy here which is bad policy. It's going to be bad for the economy and bad for the environment. So let's just wait to see how those two parties carry on. On the coalition's part, though, we're not going to support what probably will be the most punitive carbon tax in the world, especially at a time when the last thing people need in this country right now is another tax.
Isn't it your policy?
Absolutely not. When have you ever heard the coalition say they're in favour of a carbon tax? That's what this is. This is
a Greg Hunt-designed policy, though, isn't it? It's just got teeth this time.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's exactly what the Labor Party like to say. If the Labor Party are anything, they're very good at their politics. They're woeful when it comes to policy and governing the country. And the political game they're playing here, Pete, is they've basically taken an existing framework and they have hidden...
Which was yours, right?
A carbon tax. Correct. They've taken an existing coalition framework and they are hiding a carbon tax inside it. As part of some cunning little plan, as if nobody will see that carbon tax. So they are taking a framework that was designed to incentivise business and made it one to punish business. A framework that was based on a voluntary scheme and making it a compulsory scheme. They've taken a framework that was based on technology and making it a taxation regime. This is Labor through and through. All they've done is they've used an existing framework as a Trojan horse to introduce the world's most punitive carbon tax, and the coalition won't have a bar of it.
Well, I mean, you mentioned business there. The BCA not just supports it, but recommends it. So are they wrong?
I have been speaking to businesses nearly every day, Pete. I met with another business yesterday who will be courting this scheme, and they don't want it. Businesses are petrified as to what this is going to do. Now, some of them have their own reasons for not speaking up, by the way. They're dealing with the Labor Party. The Labor Party are ruthless with this sort of thing. Businesses are already being smashed. The government intervenes in markets, as we've seen with the gas market. They will not muck around. They will intervene and put themselves at the centre. So businesses are very nervous about this. The straight logic, it's pretty obvious, right? What business truly wants a new tax? That's what this is. And so you name me any business who says, yes, we like tax, we want to pay more. By the way, you know what's going to happen? Once they pay more, they're going to pass it on to consumers.
Right. Isn't this all part of the deal, though, to be able to get a seat at the table with, say, Europeans and trade deals?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. There's no doubt that the Labor Party has imported much of its climate policy from Europe, but in fact they've made it even more stringent. The emissions they are requiring of Australian industry is far higher than what Europe has looked at. 8 out of our 10 top trading partners either don't have a carbon price or it's at a far lower price than what the Labor Party are looking at. So, I just came back to the United States last week, Pete, and I tell you what, the United States, they don't have a carbon price. They don't have this scheme in place. There's no national carbon price there. But for some reason, the Australian Labor Party believes they need to go ahead of a whole bunch of our trading partners. They're going to make a tax on our businesses that will be less competitive internationally. That's going to hit jobs, hit regional Australia. It's bad news, bad policy. We won't support it.
What's so wrong with cap and trade?
Well, firstly, it's proven not to work. For nearly 30 years now, people have been wanting to have a global scheme of carbon tax and cap and trade. Now, the economic theory is fine, but where it falls down is where it tries to become practically applied. It hasn't worked. There's been studies proving it hasn't worked. But this is an ideological thing for the Labor Party. They've been on about carbon taxes for years now, right? We've seen it, and this latest iteration is actually pricing carbon 3 times higher than the last Labor government. So, you know, every time they come up with a carbon tax, they make it even harder. They haven't learnt the lessons across the world. It doesn't work. The only way you decarbonise the economy is to drive it through technology. It's about decarbonising, not decapitating.
Okay, what about just finally here some of the options that are being considered by the government to placate the Greens? Among them is a climate trigger, as well as blocking coal and gas companies from accessing the Safeguard Mechanism Transition Fund. What are your thoughts on that?
I think all the above, Pete, is silly and it would be dangerous for the Australian economy, is the short of it. But nothing, I put nothing past the Albanese government. Really, I mean, when it comes to climate and energy, this is the Albanese Bant government. They're thick as thieves.
Right.
We know that the government's trying to kill gas.
So is history going to repeat here, do you think?
Well, who knows? You know, the part of history I wish could be repeated was when the coalition was in government, because we got the balance right. We reduced emissions while keeping the economy strong. That's a part of history we need, not the Greens-Labor alliance. That does nothing for the economy, and it actually pushes emissions offshore to higher emitting nations. So it's bad for the global climate.
Ted O'Brien, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again soon.